An apology to DuckDuckGo, pre-WWDC hardware and software roadmaps, and a whole lot more. This is Mac Voices.
This edition of Mac Voices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from Mac Voices. Watch or listen to Mac Voices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date.
A quick note before we get into the panel's discussion. This particular show was recorded the week before WWDC, and because of our publication schedule and all, rather than cutting it up into the usual 2 or 3 segments, I'm releasing it as one big discussion, since some of this stuff will potentially go stale as of WWDC and the keynote. So let's go back and let the panel tell you what you should be watching or thinking about heading into WWDC, among other things. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is a talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's Tuesday night. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. That means this is Mac Voices Live. We're live on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We have some of our friends in the chat room already. More are expected to arrive momentarily. I think everyone's thrown off by the 3-day weekend here in the U.S. So I know to me, it feels like Monday, but it's actually Tuesday. So there may be some folks who have to be reminded of what the day is. So, but of course, this show will eventually show up in the feeds anyway, so it's nothing you have to worry about. A couple things here before we get started. Next week is Apple's WWDC. Unfortunately, the timing is kind of terrible because I'm going to be traveling for business. So what we're going to try to do, and I say try to do, is move Mac Voices Live to Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, or another time, because if not, the schedule is just completely fouled up for the rest of the week.
The pre-game show.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, no, actually, it'll be post-game because the keynote is Monday.
Keynote's Monday.
Keynote's
It'll
Monday.
be halftime.
Yeah. So, yeah.
See, I'm already screwed up
mid-game.
this week.
Yeah.
Mid-game.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to suggest that plan on Mac Voices Live Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, next Monday, after the Monday that is the WWDC keynote. If for any reason that doesn't work out, I will post something to the Mac Voices identity on Twitter so that you know, and also to the Mac Voices group on Facebook. So all of you are informed, because I don't want anybody wasting their time looking for us and wondering where we are. But if a number of the panel members have said they're available Monday, I'm going to try to be available Monday, and so we'll see what happens. So I'll go through this at the end of the show too. Hopefully I'll remember, just so everybody is fully informed. So there you go. That's the WWDC announcement. The second thing on my personal agenda here tonight is that I want to issue an apology. Last week, as some of you know, I publish an article of the day. I find what I think is an interesting or important article each day and post it to Twitter and to Facebook. And last week, one day, I selected an article from one of the major Mac news sites stating that DuckDuckGo got caught giving Microsoft permission for trackers, despite strong privacy reputation. And my comment on that was, if this was accurate, that you had to ask, wonder, why did Microsoft ask, and why did DuckDuckGo say yes? And unfortunately, I fell into the trap of, not waiting just a little bit longer to find out the rest of the story. Went ahead because it seems like these things are so prevalent right now. You just believe the worst in everyone, that everybody's tracking you. I mean, there's a little bit of paranoia, I think, going on. And I had a very, very nice, I want to find it here, make sure I get it right, a terrific tweet back from Gabriel Weinberg. He's the CEO and founder of DuckDuckGo, pointing me to a Reddit thread that he had posted about this. And clearly the clickbait headline was nowhere near accurate, at least from what Gabriel said. I want to throw that link to the Reddit piece into both chat rooms. And I want to say, issue an apology to Gabriel and to DuckDuckGo. My fault. Should not have fallen for it. I did. Lesson learned, and it just goes to show you this is how easily we can all get sucked in and start to believe the worst about things. So, DuckDuckGo, sorry. Thanks so much for all that you're doing to try to protect our privacy. We know everything is not within your control, but you are definitely one of the ones out there fighting for it. So thank you.
I have a question.
Frank's dying to get in. Yes, sir.
Did the article actually say crackers?
What?
You said something about the thing that says somebody was like crackers was part of it.
Did I say that? I don't think I said that.
I don't recall.
I thought you said that.
No.
Because I thought you had said that. I was going to say, that's a bit of a pun. We're talking about DuckDuckGo, and someone said crackers in there.
No. This was very serious. I mean, I felt bad about it after the fact because it just seems like, again, we see so much privacy. You just think everybody's intruding on your privacy. And
Right.
Geez, I need my medication.
So yeah. So
Don't we all?
yeah. So that's something I wanted to get out there because I think it's important that you all help. I help teach you the lesson that I had to learn our way. So let's go around the room,
Chuck.
see who. What, Jim?
I don't know if you need to apologize because I saw that story all over the place and I have not seen that response that you just posted anywhere else. This is really interesting what he wrote. And so, you just posted what a lot of other sites posted. And until 2 minutes ago, I thought the same thing that you thought originally. So thank you for clarifying that. I don't think you need to apologize.
Well, I feel like I do because I help perpetuate it by making an article of the day. I help perpetuate misunderstandings and misinformation, and that's the part that I could kick myself for, and I'm apologizing for because. By the way, I haven't invited Gabriel to the show. I haven't heard back from him. I would love to have him on here, not just to talk about this particular incident, but DuckDuckGo in general. But regardless of whether he accepts that invitation or not, I felt like I was wrong, needed to fix it here. So the link will be in the show notes, folks. If you're watching this after the fact, it's in the chat room, all of our chat rooms now. So check it out and maybe be a little bit better informed, or at the very least, hear the other side of the story.
Duck,
okay,
thanks for saying that. Thanks for saying that, and hopefully leading by example for others in the social media realm.
Well, thank you. That's, I'm not patting myself on the back. This is a mea culpa. I screwed up. So let's go around the room, let everyone introduce themselves or whatever, greet them, and then we'll get to it. So taking my screen, as I always do, Mr. David Ginsburg is here. David, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. And yes, thanks, Chuck, for saying that. I think DuckDuckGo was smart in reaching out to you, and I'm glad you were able to clear that error. But
yeah,
other than that, I'm happy to be here, and it's been a very warm last few days here. So we're trying to cool off a little bit.
Right there with you. Frank Petrie is here. Frank, good to see you.
Good to be here. Thanks to be here. And today, Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah, we had
Sure.
that discussion. It's Thursday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I got to go pick up some pants.
Yeah. Speaking of pants, thank you, Frank, for that transition. Mr. Jeff Gammon is here. Jeff, good to see you.
As always, it's great to be here. And I will make no claims about pants, nor will I claim any.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to know. Jim Ray is here. Jim, thanks for being here.
Greetings from space. Mark can fly here in his Apple spaceship run.
Well, on my screen, he's below you, so he'll have to take off and just lift up into your picture. So,
Same here.
Brittany Smith is here as well, commenting pre-show on After Dark. And that conversation is probably worth seeing if you have access to After Dark. Britt, good to have you.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.
It's always a pleasure. Last but absolutely not least, Mr. Mark Fuccio. Mark, good to have you. I love the question mark over the spaceship.
Yes, I think that's truly what's on everyone's minds for the next T-5 days or so. So we'll see what happens in this show on that. And I think to Jim, he's got a great NASA image, the Towers of Creation or Pillars of Creation. I forget the exact title of that, but great image. And I think UFOs are now out, and it's now unknown aerial phenomena. UAP is now the new term.
Yes.
We had people just flying about in front of Congress, and about 2 weeks ago.
Yep, and we know of one sitting in Cupertino right now. So I had one other little thing. This occurred to me this week, and so I'm curious, how many people here, and this is just for my personal fun, how many people here have or had a Touch Bar Mac laptop?
I did.
Yep.
Okay. How
I
many
have one
people
right now.
here do you, okay? How many people here hate the Touch Bar?
I don't know if I necessarily hated it. I just never used it. I just didn't find it very useful from what it did. But I don't know if I would go as far as saying hated it. But I mean, it wasn't anything exciting. I think it was kind of an excess for what Apple added to the previous models.
Well, Dan Moren published something this week that, things that should definitely disappear, that Apple should just completely disregard.
Mm-hmm.
And it struck me because the Touch Bar was so maligned in so many places, and yet how many of us have Stream Decks sitting on our desks?
Exactly.
Which is basically,
We do.
a Touch Bar on steroids.
It's tactile.
Well, it's a touch bar, but with limitations.
Right.
Because with the touch bar, you had the entire surface space to work with. So you could have buttons of different sizes. You could make the touch bar into a slider or a scrubber. And with the Stream Deck, you just have buttons that you push.
Right.
Well, wasn't the idea that coders were going to buy into the Touch Bar and make special use of it for each of their apps?
Yes, but the problem is the touch bar was only in one place.
Right.
So if you want developers to buy into that, you need to have the touch bar available for every Mac.
Every Mac. Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing too is not everybody sits at their laptop like most of us do. I'm looking at a big screen. I have an external keyboard. I have my Magic Keyboard, and the Stream Deck is more convenient because it's right, to my right here. I identified there's a button I want to push. I'm able to get what I need to get right from the Stream Deck.
My big problem. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go, Jeff. Go.
My big problem with my touch bar, and I'm still using my 2019 MacBook Pro. I use my Mac at my desk in closed lid mode. So
Right,
I actually can't get to the touch bar. The only time I can use it is when I'm away from my desk.
Okay.
Jason Snell had a good article this week it was mostly about the Stream Deck, but he touched on, the Stream Deck versus the touch bar. And, why do people love the Stream Deck? And, the touch bar didn't really ever take off. And I thought I could have written a post myself. I agree completely with what he said. And, I think it's because, Apple didn't really make the touch bar user customizable. So people couldn't make it into into their own thing. And
yeah.
It really, I think it highlights, what a failure this was on Apple's part, because the Stream Deck, is pretty popular. I mean, and people that have it really, really like it. And, the touch bar could have been that. It has all the hardware pretty much to do that, to have been that. And Apple didn't have they had a sort of tunnel vision view, and typical of Apple. Apple knows best, so we're gonna supply it out of the box, and you can't really change it. It's a shame. And I've had a touch bar machine for several years. I never hated it, but I never really got that much use out of it. I use an external monitor, so I don't use my Mac in clamshell mode. The touch bar is there, but I don't usually reach over to it. But you know, I've gotten a Stream Deck the last 6 months, and it's like, wow, you know, wish I could have been doing that with my touch bar all along.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's a lot of water under the bridge since those touch bar has gone away, at least on the newer models so far. But it just really struck me. You're right. I mean, because I love the touch bar for Final Cut because it was coded for Final Cut. And, you know, now if I'm using my laptop away from my desk and away from the Stream Deck, I really do miss it. And I just wish, you know, I never hated the touch bar. I just never felt like it got fully realized. And it's just too bad that somebody couldn't come up with a Stream Deck like app that would have made use of the touch bar.
The touch
Better
bar?
Better touch tool sort of does that.
Yeah,
Sort of, but not quite.
And I don't use Final Cut, but I use ScreenFlow. And I assume Final Cut does the same thing. ScreenFlow's got a great thing with the touch bar where the, what do you call it? The timeline thing comes up in the touch bar, and you can very easily, like, that's something you can't do on a Stream Deck because the Stream Deck's just buttons. And it was to the point where sometimes if I was doing a bunch of heavy editing, I would actually disconnect the external monitor because it was so cool to use the touch bar interface to adjust the timeline. The other thing, shout out to Jason in that article, was I just loved, it was so perfect what he said, that the Stream Deck software is adequate. And
I think that's a generous description of the software.
Yeah.
And I think it's spot on. It's exactly what it is. It's adequate. It kind of sucks, but it's just good enough that, you know, I mean, it could be so much better, but it's adequate. And it's enough that, you know, you only use it when you're setting it up. And, you know, now I've got mine mostly set up. I rarely touch the app, but it was a low bar for Apple that Apple didn't even, you know, they didn't even try to jump.
Yeah.
It was
Brittany,
also, it wasn't as accessible as it could have been in a time when Apple was putting out constant things with haptic feedbacks that didn't have any. It was only controlled if you can't see via voice control, or not voice control, but voiceover. And so you'd have to wait for the auditory feedback, and it didn't have haptic interactions. And that was I always felt like that was a design flaw to an extent. But I have never actually used it myself because I skipped over those generations.
Yeah, I think that's hard to say because, you know, presumably Apple made some internally prototypes with haptic feedback, and we don't know what, you know, maybe there was some sort of cost or manufacturability, or, you know, we don't really know. But, you know, even with the hardware that's there, with, you know, the right software, I think it could be so much better and you know, could have fulfilled what Apple, you know, was promising when it came out. And that's the other thing, was that they came out with it and then never did a thing with it. Yeah. They never updated the software at all. They didn't make it easier for developers to use. They didn't make it customizable. They just didn't, you know, and that's a thing that Apple's done quite a bit. You know, that's, you know, Apple comes out next week, they're going to come out with some exciting new things, right? And my mantra is, let's wait 3 years and see if any of the, you know, what sticks, because Apple has this tendency to put things out, and then they just, the minute they put it out, they forget about it.
Yeah. It was one of those things that I just was kind of anxious to hear the group's comments about, because it just really did strike me as, you know, as ironic that I'm sitting here watching a Stream Deck regularly, and yet the touch bar mine got used more than a lot of folks did, but, you know, just the way it is. Hey, Andrew Orr is here. Andrew, great to have you.
Hey, I made it just in time, right?
Well, yeah, more or less.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, it was a great show. Thanks for having us, Chuck.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday.
Oh,
I don't want to know what Jeff has said about me.
Oh, it was all good.
Oh, good.
Like
It's like me that you don't know what was
really
said.
good.
Want to know?
Hey, and we want to congratulate you too. I saw the announcement on LinkedIn that you are officially now a contributing editor at Apple Insider. So good job.
Now it's official.
Oh, congrats.
Now it's official.
Yep, thank you.
I was looking around their webpage today for your byline, but I didn't see it.
In fact, we talked about your first article last week.
Yes, the byline.
Nice. Yeah, so far it's only been a couple articles, but I have a lot more in my my queue. So expect to see more of me.
Do you have a beat, so to speak, Andrew?
Not a beat per se. Right now I've just written about, Apple focused stuff. One of my next articles it will be about cryptocurrency, but so far I'm still just settling in.
Andrew, I did add Apple Insider to my RSS feed reader because of you.
Awesome.
Oh,
There you go.
oh,
There you go.
you got to buy him a gift now.
One user at a time.
Yeah.
So we had a couple other things we want to get to tonight. We obviously want to talk WWDC speculation and anticipation, but we're going to save that because a couple other things will lead up to it. Jeff, you brought one though to our attention that I wanted to let you talk about because I think it's interesting, and I'm curious to see if anything else has developed since you posted it to our Slack. And while you're talking, I'll throw it in the chat rooms.
Oh, the ads thing.
Yes.
So, and actually, I think that was an Apple Insider article that I shared.
It was.
It was.
Yeah. All right. Well, go, Andrew. You're a rock star.
Andrew wrote it.
So the deal is that people have started noticing that they're getting ads inserted into their Apple Music curated playlists, but the ads are all promoting other Apple content. So, like telling you about their streaming radio shows and stuff like that. And the problem with this is that Apple advertises their streaming music offerings, like all of them, is ad-free, and you pay for all of them. There is no free tier for Apple streaming music content. So people are getting all upset, and I think rightly so, about the fact that they're starting to have these ads that show up in their streams, and you can skip the ads as they're playing because they're just being inserted like another track, but they're there. And this seems like a problem to me because Apple says their services are ad-free. I have not personally encountered this yet, and I stream Apple Music curated lists a lot. So, for whatever that's worth.
Jeff, just to clarify, and if you said it, I missed it because I was trying to review the article again, but these aren't ads as in, buy my dish soap. These are more sort of station identification kind of things.
No, these are like, hey, Apple has this cool thing that you should go check out. This cool show. Like check out what's happening on Apple One or things like that. So not like radio station identification sort of things, but I would call it more like ads for discovery of other content that's available through your Apple One, Apple Music subscription.
So it's like they're pushing their own Tide Pods, basically. It's their stuff. It's nothing from the outside.
Yes, it's all their own stuff.
Yeah, it's a house ad, basically. So, okay. Now,
I suppose if you want to play semantics, you could say, well, that's not actually an ad. That's discovery. But the reality is it doesn't matter what you call it. If you're dropping something like that in to the stream saying, hey, go check out this other thing that Apple does, that's an ad for the other show that Apple does.
Yep. How long did the ads run?
I don't know, because I haven't encountered any myself yet.
Yeah, this does not feel good. If you are paying for an ad-free tier, I agree. And Mark, Mark Fucci, I think you were the one that said that this sounds like it could have been just a mistake in coding or something, because that just doesn't sound like something Apple would do.
Well, I have such a subtle sense of humor, and I put bug in quotes, as in, thinking that might be an excuse for plausible deniability. But I can also see maybe from Apple's perspective, as inbound as their culture is, that, we're not recommending something that you need to pay for. We're just recommending something else that you try for in the service you already have. So I can see whether you take a small aperture or big aperture definition of an ad, this could be okay, or it could really piss people off.
Well, spoiler, it's pissing people off.
Yeah. Well, I think this is especially interesting given that I think it was a couple shows ago we talked about EDQ reportedly having bigger goals and objectives for Apple advertising, and then this pops up. I mean, certainly Apple's not about to make any money off of this kind of thing, but you hope it's not a portent of things to come.
Well, everyone should go out and screenshot, the Apple Music service description, as I did, so that if at some point it changes, we can all look back and know when the music died, so to speak. But
someone just needs to write a script so we get our canary in a coal mine alert when they change the page.
But I've got to think, I don't know, others please comment that, Dalrymple, does have, a lot of, he has a very loud voice in the Apple community, and so I think if he's out there, I think, about this, I think other people will take notice because he was one famously revealed some of the problems with the Apple Cloud music service. I don't know, 7 years ago or so.
Yeah.
So he's got a loud voice. So I think that's why maybe immediately got picked up. And I agree. If you're paying ad free and it says right there ad free, I don't give a bleep if it's for another Apple service or a dishwasher you can buy. It's an interruption on my time where you promised, I don't get ads, which are basically distracting blurbs, for other stuff that you can get, whether you pay for it or not is irrelevant. It's still an ad and intrusive on your attention stream.
Yeah. I want to get the chat room in here. Barry says, just like so-called commercial-free public media, NPR and public TV. And Brian said, or like how HBO has ads before the product, the show or the movie. Barry says he has not experienced this on Apple Music. Yeah, and actually Jim is very soft-spoken. It's the beard that has a loud voice. Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Even in retirement, the beard still roars.
The beard speaks. Yep.
It's going to be in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, exactly. So has anybody experienced this here that uses curated Apple Music playlists?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. So my colleague Wesley, he's the one who wrote one of the articles about it. He thinks maybe it's just a bug. But I agree with Jeff in that if true, that's still an ad, right?
Yeah. Okay. Here's why I have a hard time believing this is a bug. And it's because Apple has created all of these tracks and put them into invisible albums. So someone actually went to the trouble to create all of this content to insert into the streams. That doesn't happen as a byproduct of a bug. That's an intentional act.
But maybe it was supposed to happen for the $5 tier and not the full tier.
Oh, the $5 tier is listed as ad free. So unless Apple is planning on introducing a free tier where the ads are promotions for Apple's own content, then that would be the only way I could see this as an actual bug.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Apple, and I think this was something that was said in the article as well. And if so, I totally agree with it. A free tier just doesn't seem like the Apple thing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if they decided to put it in the $4.99 tier, as long as they communicate, it's just if they're sliding in and pretending nobody's going to notice, come on,
too late.
You should know better than that. Yeah, you should know better than that.
And I don't think this is the first time Apple has done this. I remember reading an article, I think it was last year, from The Verge, where this guy saw these notifications / ads for other Apple services that I don't think he was subscribed to. And maybe it's just, hey, try this for, sign up and you get 3 free months or similar to that. But I think that's still an ad. You're not asking for this notifying of these other services.
Yeah. Brett says, I guess we'll find out next week at WWDC if Apple intends to release an ad-supported level of Apple Music. So, and it could.
I don't know. I mean,
interesting little test run.
I'd play devil's advocate on that. Unless there's something in it for developers, I don't see why you would assume that they would announce it at that conference.
Huh.
Well, why would they release hardware at a software conference?
If the hardware targets developers, like a pro level Mac.
Yeah, but that's nothing that the general public really needs to see.
Well, no,
right,
almost
but don't
all
forget the
hardware impacts
keynote.
developers.
I think last year there was lots of stuff that was not developer related in the keynote,
Right.
and even in the
that's
State of the Union.
Well, the keynote is, it's focused, or it's targeted. Wait, while the general theme of the keynote is for developers, the purpose of the keynote is for the media and the public.
Right.
The State of the Union is for the developers.
Well, it didn't used to be that way, and last year most of the developers I know thought the State of the Union also wasn't really for developers, and we got to the end of the day and we're like, where's the developer part?
Yeah, that would be a problem.
But you know what? At the end of the day, I mean, I think we've gone beyond the point where DubDub is just for developers. I mean, how many other of the developer conferences get any kind of major press? And this will be on the Today Show or Good Morning America more likely than not.
Well, anyway, the point is, they could easily announce something new in Apple Music, like a free tier at DubDub. I think they could announce anything. There's no restriction on what they could announce.
Yeah, it's their show. They can do as they please.
Yep.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
But I would love to see DubDub focus mainly on software, just one event a year at least.
That'd be nice.
Well, that's
don't
that's the WWDC
stuff
keynote.
I want on iPad.
Well, Frank, I understand your desire to have it focused narrowly on that, but Apple has so few events. Most of them are product launches that, something like a DubDub might be an opportunity, to communicate to a broader public what they're doing. And one thing they might want to do this year is maybe now it's ready, for the Apple AR, VR augmented vision thing, because they certainly will need to have developer support for that. And just like they did with the iPhone, they can select to announce at any time. And even if it's not shipping for a year, it doesn't matter because it's not going to cannibalize their devices. It will allow the media and the social community to stir themselves up into a frenzy about an upcoming Apple device. And, it doesn't, and basically will, put a freeze on anybody else's, activities in the space because Apple has such a good reputation for launching a new products. So do I expect it? I have no idea. I'm 50-50, which means basically I know nothing. But it's something they could do, because remember back in 27, they launched the iPhone in January and it didn't start shipping till late June. And that's a great way to get everybody thinking and talking and dreaming and imagining and lusting and wanting. So is now the time for it? We'll see.
See, the thing is, everybody knows that when September rolls or October rolls, it's going to be an iPhone release, and now an iPhone Apple Watch release. We know that's going to be hardware, and then they'll do a couple other events, at least in these times of virtual events. They do some hardware stuff that's short and succinct. And then, of course, occasionally they have just a press release where they just drop it without really telling anybody. And I myself personally would enjoy them coming out and just doing one show a year where they give you a roadmap of here's where we're going with all the software. You guys have, well, look at the hardware. Everybody wanted ports pack. We got ports pack. I would love to hear them talk about iPad OS and where they're thinking of taking that. Because a lot of people I've been watching on YouTube are thinking of getting rid of their iPads, because it's like, why is there an M1 in there? Why did I pay that much for that machine?
How is that different from WWDC? I don't get it.
I'm sorry.
A roadmap of software, they're telling you over the next year, this is what we're doing. They don't usually do a whole lot more than that.
Well, they've been throwing a lot of hardware the last few years.
The software, you said you want a roadmap of software. I don't know how that's different from WWDC.
Yeah, they do both. They think about all the iOS features that we see demoed. And then we're all salivating them, and we got to wait till September or October. So they do telegraph it to some degree. You don't want them telegraphing it too much, because then they're telegraphing it to their competitors. So, but listen, Apple right now has so many product lines and such a large audience that it's tough to cater to just one specific part of it. So, I'm going to move us on. I had one other quick story before we start into quasi WWDC stuff, and that one, Mark, you brought this one in, and I just thought it's a Twitter story, and I think it's very interesting given the Elon Musk discussions we've had in the last couple of weeks. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so sure. Basically, the news was Twitter agreed to pay a $150 million fine because they launched out a program to collect people's telephone numbers, as a way to offer them additional two-factor authentication and security for accounts, yada, yada, yada. But then they turned around and used it for serving ads and personalization. And at the time they were asking for it, they said that they weren't going to do it. Well, ultimately, the SEC kind of slapped them on the hand, and they got a $150 million fine. And is that right, or right size or not? Don't know. But the most interesting thing in the link that I sent to this group here on our Slack channel was that, they're thinking that now the SEC is starting to look at, when you make a claim, you can't nullify it in the fine print, of a contract that nobody reads. So if you make a claim, you've got to live by it. It's sort of like, good old AT&T with their unlimited service, but, somewhere buried in the middle of the contract, they spell out, conditions under which they might limit you. So, I think it's an interesting development for me from that perspective, that it may be an era where you can't speak with forked tongue, as they used to say, and say one thing up front to catch people in their attention, and then another one turn around and repudiate, and thereby disadvantage them. And I think the technical term is screw them because of the stuff you have in your fine print. So interesting development. Will it be significant? Will there be other companies caught in the same mess? Don't know. Let's let's stay and see. We have a weekly forum here to monitor these things.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we brought it up, Mark, just because, with Elon Musk bidding for Twitter, buying Twitter, wherever it stands, however you look at it, there have been all kind of accusations that he's broken certain SEC rules. And, so this clearly was well before his involvement.
Right. I mean, I'm sure he has. And it just indicates that there just may be a lot of hidden tooth decay at Twitter that he needs to clean out if he actually does, acquire ownership of it.
Yeah. So let's sort of segue toward WWDC. When I sent out a post on our Slack about this, Brittany chimed in with something and Andrew was right behind her. So I'm going to start this off by saying that I think you two would like, maybe among others on the panel, we'll see, would like to see some changes or developments to Apple Mail. Britt, do you want to talk about it a little bit because you were the first one in?
I mean, I did throw it out as an example, but it has not made positive changes. It's made very few changes, but it's also made changes that make its interface, actually on iOS in particular, its interface more confusing. Hit reply to mark something as junk. This makes none sense. Also, so the share sheet was introduced in iOS 8 and has nothing to do with the mail app whatsoever. Like, they do not talk. You can mail things from one. You can't use any emails to send them out, to do anything with the share sheet. So yeah, mail is really old and crufty, and there's so many cool clients doing new things, but they don't really have the integration of the native app. And man, I sure would like things like delay send to have inside of the mail app itself, and not use some weird janky third-party thing that I have to hook in and hope actually sends it when I intend it to. So
understood.
Lots of improvements to be made in mail.
Oh boy, howdy.
I know someone that's not here. Joe Kessel would agree strongly with that. Andrew, before we get you, I want to welcome Kelly Gamont. Kelly, great to have you. Aren't you supposed to be somewhere else tonight?
You can't do that to me twice, Chuck. It took me a second, though.
But, yeah, I know. I had you for just a second.
But no, not tonight.
Yeah, okay.
I could feel the disturbance in the forest. Apparently, we're hating on mail. I'm for it. So
this is our WWDC.
Okay. Yeah, we're starting WWDC by hating on mail.
For the record, I use the native mail client. It works with shortcuts better, and I like the VIP. But oh my gosh,
years ago, even at TUA, Mike Rose coined the phrase benevolent neglect. And I feel like that's what Apple's doing. Like, you can send, you can receive, you can open a message and view it. If there's a link in there, you could click it. What more do you people want is sort of how mail feels kind of at this point. Like, it does what mail is supposed to do,
those were all beautiful in 2009.
Precisely. And the fact that Brittany, like, you positioned it perfectly. Like, mail is not great, but nothing else has the access that mail has in order to do all the kinds of other things that people like to do. So that's the part that I find mostly frustrating. On Clockwise last week, we were talking about, what do you want to do? Like, what would you like to see out of WWDC? What app needs refreshed? And we were all kind of like, well, I suppose it could be. And each of us was sort of acting like we didn't really have an alphabetized list. And I think we ended up with a spreadsheet at the end of it because, oh yeah, that's good too. That really does need an update, so I totally understand, especially mail, because a lot of people end up in it because it's better than anything else at integrating. It's not better than loads of other email clients out there, depending on your workflow. And I think that's part of the issue. So
it's also
sorry,
just
Andrew.
there.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah. Andrew, you jumped in right behind Britt. What is your beef with mail?
So part of my comment, I think maybe I'll be I'll be able to link to later, talk about later. I just think mail should get more intelligent features. I'm kind of thinking some things of what Google has done to Gmail. Like maybe it would be helpful if Apple Mail could intelligently, automatically sort your mail into these different categories, like Gmail has done. They have, travel, promotional, probably newsletter, things like that. But there are a couple specific features that I would like for mail, but those are more like, this is just wish list items. But overall, I agree. I think something needs to be improved in that.
Okay. Jeff, you're saying in the chat room that there's some things you can only do with Apple Mail. And I'm kind of curious to find out what some of those might be.
Okay. So before I jump into that, let me start by saying, Apple, why can't I have feature parity between iOS, iPadOS, and macOS in the Mail app? Please?
In anything.
Long time.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big problem right there. Big problem that I have that keeps me from going to any other email app is that I want to be able to have my email aliases, and I want to be able to do digital signatures and encryption. And I don't mean like have a little thanks line at the end of my email. I mean, actual having that digital stamp that's in the file, the message, so that the recipient can verify that my email has not been altered. And there are no email apps that I have found that give you the signatures and encryption and aliasing. And without those two together, I mean, that ends it for me right there. But I also rely heavily on mail tags. And there's no other email app that allows you to add metadata to your messages in the way that mail tags does. Mm-hmm. So with those three things right there, that I am stuck in the mail world. But the thing is, that's on the Mac, and on iOS, I can't use mail tags.
Hypothetically, last year, Apple introduced this new extensions for Apple Mail only on the Mac. And I don't know what is inadequate about it, but I trust the people making things like the tools Jeff are using, that they're not using it. Mostly there was one extension for mail that folks could find when they were looking for it. So yeah, like theoretically they did a thing, but again, it's not parity across them. And if it was, maybe somebody would have actually used it in the last year.
And I think what's interesting about that is the difference between what Apple says on stage and what we actually get in that. We hear so much about you can have the exact same shortcuts on your Mac as on your iOS devices. And you can, with Catalyst and all that, right? Like, check a box and now the iOS app runs on your Mac because you can have the same things. And the whole point of iCloud is to have all your stuff on all your stuff, and on and on and on and on. But then okay, so you finally unscrewed iCloud Mail, and so now I can have my iCloud Mail on all my devices, but it's going to look different on all my devices, and I can't sort the same way, and I can't search like I want to, and I can't use mail tags, and I can't use mail act on, heaven forfend, and all these other things that are a very different experience in every context. And I find that endlessly frustrating, especially from a company that we know for many years led us to believe, maybe it wasn't true, that usability is important and that UI matters and that you should give people an elegant interface in order to do the thing that they need to do and get out of the way to let people do what they want. I mean, as much as I hate the fact that the only color you get in notes is gold and you will take it and you will like it, at least it's functional. I can have folders of notes. I can share them with other people. You can write them in Markdown. There's formatting. You can have checklists. You can have tables, all kinds of basic functionality when they actually scraped together one entire F and said, we've got one F this year and we're applying it to notes. You're welcome. They're gold now. Even that was at least better than we've gotten out of mail, you know, and for all the stuff that they purport makes messages better, it still looks the same. I mean, I'm going to guess most of this panel remembers, I think it was iOS 7 when they changed everything and it was all flat and everybody wet their pants. Right in that neighborhood. iOS 7, iOS 8, right in there.
I didn't have pants on, so, you know.
Is that right?
Well,
After
iOS 7 made it flat, and then iOS 8 brought the interoperability that used the flatness.
Yeah. So I think it was 7 when everything got different and everybody freaked out, but at least it was different. You know, like we could tell, like they're trying, something's going on. Like even if it's terrible, at least somebody's applied some effort to something. And like, I swear mail has looked the same since then. And maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like it's basically looked the same. Like there's a different gradient on the icon now. Woo. Like that might be the only difference. Messages, for the most part, still looks the same. When you go interact with somebody, it's acres of wasted space on those melon farming speech balloons, and it's stupid. We get it. We know what texting looks like. Let me have it be a compact view if I so choose. But no. And that's the thing that's sort of frustrating is all of these things are supposed to be like user experience and all this kind of stuff, but not a lot of stuff is changing or evolving in any sort of useful way. I find it more and more frustrating as I realize, you know, you go look at like another, you know, I go look up something and Andrew wrote a story on how to do a thing, right? And he did it with iOS 12 and everything looks exactly the same now. It might be in a different order, but it all looks the same. Like, you know, it's not like looking up something old and going, wow, look at all the pinstripes on macOS in this ancient screenshot, right? It's not like that. There's not a lot of evolution even really happening on a lot of it. And it's really frustrating.
So I want to take the evolution comment and segue us again a little bit closer to DubDub by pointing out Andrew's recent article about iOS customization evolving over time. How's that for a segue, Jeff Gammon?
That was fantastic. Chuck, I am so proud of you.
So I just threw the link to Andrew's article in the chat room. And Andrew, I'll let you talk a little bit about this because I think it's kind of amazing when you look back just how much iOS has evolved, and we kind of forgot about some of that evolution.
Yeah, it's really interesting. My article was kind of, you know, diving into the customization, personalization of iOS. Some things maybe that Apple borrowed from Android and maybe what things could be improved. Like I mentioned before with mail, at the end of the article, I kind of explored what I would like to see in iOS 16 and more. And I think I would want to see more options to set default apps, because right now we can set a third-party browser or email app that we so choose. But I would like to see that expanded to see, you know, maybe you would like to choose your own a third-party calendar, or maybe a notes app or a reminders app, things like that. So an actual music app option for, you know, maybe, you know, with Spotify, something else. I want to see more in that regard.
I am so with you.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I use OmniFocus instead of tasks. So why can't I choose that as my default? And then why doesn't Apple give third-party developers the hooks they need so that I can integrate directly with that the way you do with the To-Do app? Right now, it's a process of doing a lot of wonky jiggery stuff with shortcuts and multiple steps, and or dumping everything into the To-Do app and then having that feed over to OmniFocus, which is stupid. Why should I have all of this stuff that's just building up a big database in the To-Do app that I'm never going to look at?
Just
anyhow,
to
there's lots of
avoid
stuff.
The email reminders app.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
So I'm weird. I think everyone on the panel knows this. I don't know about all the listeners yet.
You hear, Brittany, that tells us all something with this crew.
Is that a reflection on us?
Why not both?
You decide. I if there's customization that somebody wants, often I'm just default behind you unless I have a good reason to the contrary. I will say though that like I don't care about any of those. Like, you want it, go for it. It's fine. I see no way in which that would hurt somebody else that I support. Unlike a second like free open app store, which actually would not be great for me and some of my clients. But like most, like you want those are great. But like I'm just like, oh, I would never use that. It's just interesting. Like they should probably do it if there's people who want it. But it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think this stuff is always interesting. And I was interested in relation to this article in relation to what Frank said about, he'd like to see more of a software roadmap. And I think we'll get it. I mean, I think at some point they can't stretch out too much beyond a certain point, but I'll be surprised if we don't see some new demos of some new features in the upcoming version of iOS.
I think
if I interject here, the issue with giving roadmaps is ultimately it's a no-win for the company, because if they reveal too much and things slip, have bugs, get delayed like they invariably do, then they get a black eye for a variety of things, or they get accused of just presenting all the future concept stuff that never ever ships, which is something Microsoft has done. So it's really not in their interest, and the priorities change. Somebody gets sick on a project, so okay, it slips by 4 or 6 months. So they really don't want to do a roadmap, because ultimately that is a contract. They are setting an expectation. As much as they claim it's not, customers remember. So
but there's no
confused.
due date. If there's no due date, I'm just looking for direction.
Apple will never give that to you.
Right. Exactly.
They're going to do what they do every year. We're going to get a detailed look at what iOS 16 and macOS 13 look like. They have to do that because developers have to, rework their apps. So throughout the week, they'll be releasing all the APIs. They will be releasing betas of iOS 16, macOS 13, and watchOS 9, I guess, and whatever,
but that's
during the week. And so we'll get a roadmap to October, and like we always do, and not anything an inch beyond that.
Actually, I think maybe we have a definitional wording, what words mean type of challenge here, because that's basically the stuff that's the here and now that Apple knows. It's pretty well baked. It may ship at the 1st of September. It may ship on the 15th of October, but it's stuff that's basically dependable. When other people say roadmap, they want to know, okay, well, where are you going to be in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And that's the sort of that gets Microsoft in trouble. And that's part of the reasons why Apple just really doesn't play with the enterprise, because enterprises want, whether it's good or not, they want that sort of visibility so they can plan and get ready and yada, 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 yada. But mostly it's they want the power for that, where they can come back and, produce a slide deck and say, oh, you said you're going to do this and you didn't. So it's part of the battle between vendor and client. And Apple sidesteps that entirely, by here it is. Isn't this great? It's the best, ABC ever, so I think asking for long-term roadmaps from Apple, you're going to wait until, the sun explodes and, we have heat deaths.
It's not possible to know how much technology will advance, honestly, more than a year out. Like after 5, you're getting pretty ridiculous. But whether they've meant to or not, they have given some software roadmaps past October because we've been getting features that aren't released till the spring. They may have intended originally to be released in September, but universe control anyone? Like that was not out anywhere near when they meant it to. And they've been moving more towards
that was a failure.
That illustrates the point is, somebody got an Easter egg, and, oh, this is going to come ready. Whereas they said it was going to be in October and, and it wasn't there, then that would create a big PR issue. So, it's ultimately, the less you disclose, the better you are.
And I will contradict myself. And occasionally they have given us slightly longer views, like Catalyst. They told us about a year in advance. They're like, this is coming next year. So that was pretty weird. And not sure this was a dub announcement. I don't think it was, but when 32-bit, maybe it was when 32-bit apps were going to be deprecated, they gave us quite a bit of notice. I think it was more than a year of notice on.
I think it was like 2 years, wasn't it?
Maybe.
It was announced that the new operating system, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it was announced that Mojave, just like on iOS, we're telling you now that the operating system you get in 4 or 5 months is going to tell you that this 32-bit app won't work on the next operating system. And then on the next one, we got 32-bit Apocalypse, but everybody who had updated to the previous version was getting an alert every time they launched that app. It's 32-bit and this is going to break and you need to talk to somebody about it. Yeah. So we did get a lot of notice on that. But I think there's, to Mark's point, I think there's a middle ground though. I think you could say something like, we are working, what the focus of iOS 16 is computational photography, and most of what we want out of this operating system is to make it so that your phone has enough smarts to take better pictures, and and now we're going to tell you about some of the other things that are super great. You get a house key and a car key, and here's your driver's license, whatever. But for the most, like, you could say something like that and give people an idea what's coming, not make anybody mad. If I make an app that is text only, and I know that the focus of this operating system is going to be photography, then perhaps I'm not in for as much work this summer as I would be if I were somebody that made Pixelmator or,
I don't understand.
Else.
They're going to
you could say something like that overall, though, and it's computational photography or it's machine learning or whatever, and if you're making something that has little, if nothing, to do with that, then you kind of know what you're in for, and people who are looking to upgrade will know what they're in for as well. Like, my camera might get better even if I keep the same phone is kind of an awesome sell for some people, for example.
But Kelly, they're going to tell us everything about iOS 16. They're not going to give us some vague.
No. Which is not what I expect. But you could say, like, overall, like the focus of this is this, or the focus of this is, however they put it when we got the bolt tightening releases, like your mountain lions and your snow leopards. When we got those, they didn't say we're fixing all the crap under the hood that nobody can see, but everybody runs into. That's not how they put it. It was the thinnest, lightest operating system ever, some stupid thing, and they made it all sound like it was going to be the greatest, and, rainbows and unicorns and all of that. But, in practical terms, that's what we were getting, and being able to spin something like that, is a very easy thing for Apple to do. Give people an idea of what they're in for and not say on September 21st, we are launching this. On October 21st, we are launching this, because nobody wants that anyway. I mean, it's May 31st right now. If I ran a software company and that software company was just me, I still cannot guarantee you that my release date is June 1st because it's not June 1st yet.
Well, they're not going to tell
I'd like
us,
to ask a question to David, because he's a guy here in a very large company involved in multi-year procurements and blah, 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 blah. Put on two hats. First, put on your day job hat of how you think about roadmaps. And then when you're done, put on your Apple hat and tell us how you think about roadmaps.
Well, I mean, as far as roadmaps for enterprise, the roadmap is slow. it's a slow road. I mean, working in Windows, giving that as example, there's a lot of companies that are still staying on Windows 10. It's only because Windows 11 is too new. They're not going to go through it. I mean, the same thing is happening. The same thing, not a similar thing happens with Apple, with Macs, Macs in the environment, but they notice that you have to upgrade quicker on a Mac than you do on a Windows machine when it comes to in enterprise with having both platforms going. So you're seeing lots of different things when it comes to what's going to upgrade, what's not going to upgrade. The software developers that are dealing with particular in-house apps, because a lot of companies have in-house apps, those take a lot longer to develop. I mean, there's apps out there that could be out there for the last 15 years and are still going. We got Internet Explorer going away in 2 weeks. Thank God.
Well, to be fair, that's just because Internet Explorer is that slow. It actually ended a while ago, but it takes that long for it to render and load. And if it's Firefox, it would have been gone like a year ago. The joke just isn't working. I'm sorry. The idea was that Internet Explorer is just really slow.
Yeah, I mean, and I see Brittany's comment in our chat in Zoom here. Windows 11 is 64-bit only. Well, Mac OS has been 64-bit for quite a while now. I mean, I understand especially with games, 32-bit is still a thing because of that reason, and Windows 10 is that, and Microsoft is going to continue to develop Windows 10 at least for another 3 years or 3 years, I think it was. So, the thing is, companies are not ready for upgrades. There are some companies that jump on it right away. They're on the bandwagon, and Kelly can attest to this. She works in a similar day job, that she deals with the clients that are like this, that they have to stay. They have to stay on a platform that is working for now, but start to look and prepare. It's hard to put together a roadmap when it comes to enterprise. Same thing with on the Apple side of things. I think I see, not necessarily in my experience of work, but more of the experience overall, that there's a lot of acceleration in Apple, but as far as adopting OS updates. I mean, you look at the numbers, the way it shows for iOS, I cover it all the time. And, after about 5 or 6 months, you have 80% of people have already upgraded, to the latest iOS. The Mac is very similar.
I would pitch in on Mac OS. I think part of the reason that updates became something that happened every October with regularity is a concession to enterprise, and making that something that's sort of predictable and regular, that IT departments can expect. So somebody in David's position at one company working with loads of machines, like David knows what to expect. Like every fall, this is what's going to happen, and these are the sorts of things I'm going to need to do to get ready. And in my case, I work for an MSP, managed service provider, which basically is consulting company. When you when you don't want to hire internal IT staff and you sort of hire out for someone else to do that, that's what my company does. And so I work with lots of different companies in lots of different situations. Great big companies, small companies, some are 100% Mac, some are mixed. And in order to give people the opportunity to do something like that, like Patch Tuesday, we've heard about forever. Microsoft releases updates every Tuesday overnight so that every Wednesday, you come in, everything's fine. And, Apple has started doing something a little bit more regularly. Late September, you're going to get a new operating system. Here, sort of the headline items that you need to know about it in order for that to happen. And I think they had to do that in order to be anything resembling enterprise viable, really, because otherwise, you can't plan for anything. I mean, remember what the old OS release schedule used to look like? It was, they got Eddie Q drunk at the karaoke bar and he threw a dart at a 5-year calendar, and that's when the next release date would be. I mean, it may have
that
been
explains a lot.
Slightly less scientific than that, but only slightly. And that's part of the issue. That's part of the issue before. And I think that's part of with OS 10 and making those updates regular, and on mobile devices, making those updates regular as well. I think part of that is making sure that, whether it's a big release or a refinement release, that those are the sorts of things that people can rely on, even if it's not, here are the features that are coming every fall. Just knowing that there's a new one coming and that this is what's going to happen helps plan for those resources and make that stuff a lot more readily available and make it something that people can choose at work.
And with Mac OS in the enterprise, they realize, you got companies that are sitting on 2 and 3 versions back of Mac OS. Mm-hmm. You got to upgrade. I mean, it as long as the hardware that they have is still good and it still can run the latest OS, in our case right now, Monterey, you got to do it. I mean, it's just things are going to get outdated quickly, and more companies are starting to realize, I think we need to do a better job of managing Macs. Windows, that's a whole nother story. I mean, patch Tuesday, case closed. There's patch. I mean, there's sometimes patch Tuesday every 2 weeks. I mean, sometimes there's so many insane updates that happen. But you have to react to that in order to get it to work. And software developers have to be ready for it too, because believe me, there's plenty of patches that get installed and then it breaks things. And you got to test it first. You can't just, okay, there's a patch. Let it fly. Whoops, that app doesn't work anymore. That we must have did something wrong. So it's very important to stay on top of that, as well as that's what I say. Our point here is having our software roadmap. Yeah, it's all great and all having that roadmap, but it's very hard to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this used to happen with a lot of frequency, and it doesn't seem like it happens quite as much now, but Apple might say, we're going to deliver this feature in the 4th quarter. And so on October 2nd, people are screaming, where is it? Where is it?
Yeah,
and
that too.
And Apple finally delivers it on 12/30, and people are griping, well, you said in the 4th quarter. Okay, well, 12/30 is still
December 30th
quarter.
At the end of the year.
So,
you're making this work.
Is that different from any other company in the tech space? Because they all give you the general time frame. Like Intel says these new processors are coming out in the second half of 2023 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as the first day of that window happens, people are saying, okay, you said this is when this is going to happen. So where is it? And then you wait to the end of the window, and that's most likely when it's actually going to show up.
I have spoken to customers.
Apple.
I'm here to tell you, I have spoken to customers from a wide variety of companies, as it was my job for a lot of years, and software companies, hardware companies, internet service providers. I've answered customer inquiry from all of them, and you can basically set a land speed record for the time between when the window starts and when somebody contacts the company and says, you said it was going to be now. Is it now? How about now? Is it now? Could be now. Is it now? That's what's happening every time. It doesn't matter. And in fact, the window on betas, beta 0 is going to drop next Monday. This giant sack of knives that's just sharp edges everywhere that you can insert into your computing device of choice if you so desire. And the minute somebody starts bleeding from it, they immediately email whoever the software company is and says, your stuff doesn't work. Well, the operating system's been out for like 4 hours. Give me a chance.
Yeah.
I had to eat lunch.
You got to spend time testing it.
You're going to get that no matter what. Yeah. You're going to get that no matter what. So it doesn't matter. And I would think by now, any Apple person who has been watching for some time is going to hear Tim Cook say, we will be releasing this in the spring. Okay. So the first day of summer is June 21st. So June 20th, it's going to be out. Cool.
Yeah.
Done. If you get it any sooner than that, you're just pleasantly surprised. Like that's always how it works with Apple. It always has. And that's never going to change. So the hard data we're going to get tomorrow is the headlines on the new version of iOS. What terrible joke we're going to get before they actually tell us the new California location for the next version of the operating system. We're going to find out if they're going to go with 13 or if we're going to skip it on Mac OS because reasons. And then we don't even get dates most of the time. It's just in the fall, right? And then we get the iPhone event, and that's when we get hard dates on things. So it's not even like there's going to be a whole bunch of data in there that's actionable items for most people until months have ours in them again. I mean, really, in practical terms, that's where we're at.
But look what Apple does, that they're giving you some sort of direction of what's going to end up happening. You don't hear that with a lot of other software companies. Look at Adobe when they make releases. It's non-existent sometimes. You don't know, the Photoshop needs to be updated.
Didn't they announce Photoshop for iPad like 2 years before?
Exactly. There you go. Well, there's a good example.
They're projecting way in the future. Apple is very restrained compared to other companies. They're very, they keep a tight leash on things. Most other companies, they say, oh yeah, here's what we're going to do in a year, 2 years, 5 years. And Apple doesn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Brian in the chat room says, reminds me of the video game market. Too often a game is promised on a certain date and it's released prematurely and buggy when it would have been better for it to be delayed. And then
or
Barry
they just keep delaying it forever. Duke Nukem forever.
Yeah. Barry. Barry says, I like Craig's jokes. So there you go, Barry.
I think a lot of Apple stuff gets released before it should be. So that's a different question.
Yeah. Well, and Apple sort of sets itself up for that because they almost the contrary of what we're saying, what Frank was asking for. Sometimes they announce stuff too early. It'd be better just to sit on it. But there is this incredible pressure to, have some whiz bang, tentpole kind of thing for next Monday. And if they don't, regardless of when it's going to come out, if they don't, then Apple can't innovate, or Apple hasn't innovated, or they're not up to what they used to be. And I mean, there's so many masters here to serve, from the stock market to the developers to the customers to those of us who watch this stuff like a hawk, to the people that Kelly and David were talking about that are waiting for that particular thing, and when it's not there on the date they think it should be, then it's late.
Well, also throw in the chip shortage issue. That's sounds like it's going to be going on for many years to come. That's going to affect a lot of decision making because Intel's. I remember there was a story about Intel saying that we don't know if where the next chips are going to be ready, and I think if they were saying something like 80% of the chips are manufactured in Asia and 20% in the US. And I believe, if I remember quoting it, what I heard this morning, they would like to change that to 50-50. So we would have a much better control of chips. Well, right now we don't, and we're seeing. I'm ordering MacBook Pros 16-inch laptops, and they're 7 to 9 weeks out right now.
Yep.
I mean, it's that's
crazy.
All. I was waiting for it to be more. I mean, there's
like, I'm not being sarcastic. Like it's easy. I've seen August, late August pickup dates in ordering hardware for my users. So
even Dell and other PC manufacturers, there's
in anything.
That shouldn't have much effect on software timelines, though.
No, but
it does if you can't sell anybody the thing that takes advantage of the thing you're the thing in the software that you're trying to tell them about. I mean,
Yeah, a few things around the edges, but most of what's in new operating system releases is not dependent on new hardware, and in fact runs, usually runs on old hardware back a number of years.
But it does make for a slightly different proposition if you can't entice people to upgrade to a new hunk of hardware if they can't get their hands on it. It makes it it makes it a little different proposition.
If I can,
like a Tesla.
Kelly, with respect, I think the last thing a hardware company wants to do. No, Kelly, with respect, the last thing a hardware company wants to do if they have 12-week lead times is stimulate more demand.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's a different proposition for the software that is going to be the greatest on the new hardware, when the new hardware might be very difficult to come by. And it's difficult to come by when Apple, which has bent the supply chain to its will time and time again, is in this situation where you can go try and order a laptop in May and find out that it will not be delivered to you until August. Now, it might be July. We all know Apple likes to, send the notification and it's not quite as long as you thought, but it could still be July. I have a friend who just, through a fluke of timing, ordered a new MacBook Pro at the beginning of March and got it today. And that was it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's only 2 months.
Yeah.
3 months.
And that was the beginning of March. So.
But Kelly, I have friends that have ordered new dishwashers and refrigerators, and they are 6, 8, 10, 12 months out.
Yeah. Because it's a very serious supply chain problem. Like when Apple is in this situation, that if Apple can't get their hands on things, Apple, who at one point, was it flash storage? And I can't remember if it was like an early iPhone thing, Jeff or Chuck, you guys may remember this, like Apple was purchasing 30% of like all of the flash memory made in the world at that moment or something.
That was an iPhone thing.
It was some crazy number, but they had the power, so to speak, to be able to do that. And you can't do that.
They had the dollars. They could buy it. They could prepay.
But you can't do that if the manufacturing isn't there for you to do. I mean, if you own, even if you own 30% of all the flash memory that's out there right now, that is a dramatically lower number than it used to be. And especially at the numbers to which Apple has become accustomed, if Apple can't get this done, nobody can get this done. My mom has been waiting, speaking of appliances, my mom's been waiting to get a replacement refrigerator door for her refrigerator for well more than 6 months, because it was 2021 when the service people came out to her house and went, you know what, you need a new refrigerator door. We'll get that replaced for you. And they've been telling her 6 to 8 weeks for 6 months now. So if Apple can't get their hands on anything, I'm surprised there's anything left on a shelf anywhere, that plugs in to a power outlet at this point. It's very surprising.
We go on and on about the supply chain issue. It's not a good situation right now, but going back to software, I agree with you, Jim. It's not directly affecting what the developers are doing with software, but we also need to have this hardware because we want to continue to innovate with newer hardware to get this software to work, more better.
There's probably some effect around the edges that, maybe some developers at Apple, have to use older machines, so their compiles take slightly longer. But I don't think that's a major driving factor. What I'm really curious about next week is, where are they going to have this viewing party? Is it going to be in the Steve Jobs Theater? Is it going to be inside the ring? Are they going to set up a theater outside on the hill?
It'll be at the Rainbow Stage, right? So that they're all outside.
They haven't announced that.
That was my guess. Was just put everybody outside at the stage.
They haven't even said if it would be inside or outside.
I saw a thing they were going to have at lunch and after like dinner or something like.
They're going to have breakfast and
lunch. The one giant thing. Which was it?
In Cafe Max.
Is that
although even there, I don't know. They're going to have you can go on a tour of Cafe Max. I'm not sure. And somebody I know that was at Apple, is an Apple employee, and he said before the pandemic, he never saw the doors of that cafeteria open. Even though they can roll it open and make it almost kind of like an outdoor thing. Mm-hmm. He thinks now that, he's not there that much, but I guess he has seen it open since then. But, normally they don't let visitors in that ring. And if they even let anybody in, they have to have a minder. So, if they're going to have, and how many, another thing I'm wondering about, how many people did they, are they letting in? Is it 100, 500, 1,000? Don't know. And I guess we're getting pretty late. I guess I haven't heard anything about press being invited. Usually they have
I don't think press.
At this point, I don't think they are.
I don't think the press is.
We're less than a week away. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Guys, we're pretty much at time. So we're going to wrap it up and get out of here, because in a week we'll know, what is announced, and then we can analyze that and talk that to death. But it does feel like so many things about the world have changed. I just to put a fine point on this supply chain discussion, there was a time that Apple was super highly praised for its, on-demand supply. There was virtually no inventory. And now everybody, including Apple, would kill to have inventory so they could deliver products. Let's go around the room. Let's let folks know where they can find each one of you, and then we'll get out of here. And I'm going to flip it around as I always do. And this time I'm going to start with Andrew Orr. Andrew, thank you so much. Congratulations again on the new position. Where can folks find you, which was part of that discussion?
Yeah, thanks. So you can find me on Twitter at Andrew or Not. Usually I'm posting. I try to post maybe a little bit now, more nowadays. And then, as we mentioned before, you can find some of my writing now at appleinsider.com.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. Mr. Mark Fuccio, where can folks find you? Thank you for joining us again with the spaceship.
Oh, it's simple. Easiest way is Twitter at Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio. You can reach me at LinkedIn also.
Great. Thank you for being here. Next up, Ms. Kelly Gamont. Kelly, I'm glad you were able to make it this time, being in the right place at the right time.
I will never live this down, will I?
Well, we never did ask you. Were we right? Weren't you supposed to be elsewhere last week?
Well, I didn't come back and tell you, false alarm. So yes,
that's true. That's true.
Hopefully you showed up on time.
I mean, I was a few minutes before the appointed time, so it was fine. Okay. Yeah, it was Cat Mac that I was supposed to be speaking to, and we sort of did a what kind of questions do you have on bigger picture kinds of things, like we talked about good ways to settle on a decent VPN and that kind of thing, helping people with a little bit more teach someone to fish kind of a thing, instead of like, why does it do that? Well, because you have the box checked that says to do that. So if you uncheck the box, it quits. Oh, like actual, like bigger picture kinds of things. So we had a really great talk. So, hi, Cat Mac. Thanks for having me. Eventually, once I looked at my calendar again.
Hey, Kelly.
So
Kelly,
the rest of the time,
Kelly, I got to say though, the After Dark that contained your reaction will go out later this week, and it is priceless. I watched it like 6 times today. I cracked up every single time.
I still have it in my head.
Yeah. So
you're welcome.
So folks,
I'm bummed I missed that.
Oh, you're gonna see it soon.
Yep. Shameless
You're
plug.
gonna loop it, Jeff.
Shameless plug. If you want to see it, you have to support Mac Voices on Patreon at any level, and you will get access to Mac Voices After Dark. And trust me, it is worth it just for that 15 seconds.
Timeless.
Was this the week I missed also?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, if you were there, Jim, you would know.
Oh yeah, her eyes bugged out. Brothers cartoon. Yep. Eyes bugged out of her head. It's great.
Pure gold. Kelly, where can folks find you?
Well, when I'm not apparently double booked, you can find me Lately, you can find me over on YouTube with my friend Aaron Hockley, aka the tech photo guy, who did a series of chats with me about when to upgrade things. So there's a chat. We had a discussion about when to upgrade your computer. We had a discussion about when to upgrade your smartphone, which is the latest in the series, and it's out right now, and also when to upgrade your photography gear. And it was a super fun discussion, and it's just sort of nice buying guide sorts of tips over on his channel. So you can go check that out. I've given Chuck a link to the latest one in the series. So that will hopefully be in the show notes. You can also find me at Loud, Fast, and Keep Going, which is the Barry podcast, the HBO show Barry. Mike Rose and I decided to talk about it because we talk about it all the time on our regular show. So you can find Loud, Fast, and Keep Going in the podcatcher of your choice, where we just talk about this show, which is a heartwarming, upbeat show about a hitman. So if you haven't seen it yet, it is super dark and it is so good, and it's won a truckload of awards, and you should totally check it out.
What's the name of the show?
Loud, Fast, and Keep Going.
Is that the show on Netflix? No, HBO?
Oh, the show itself is called Barry, just Barry, and it's on HBO.
Okay.
And
Kelly Hader, right?
The third season is airing. Yeah, Bill Hader. And the third season is airing right now. So we've released season 1 recap and season 2 recap, and we're about to jump into sort of live reaction to season 3. So it's a half-hour show. Check it out. I think if you watch the first 2 episodes of season 1, you'll see exactly what you're in for. And if it's not your thing, that's cool. But if it is, you are in for the best ride, and you should absolutely check it out. You can find the show this came from at aftershowpodcast.com. That's Mike Rose and I, where we just spent a bunch of time talking about one of the characters on the show and decided we should just do that show kind of on the side. So you can find me there. You can find me at I Want My MCU TV over on the Incomparable Network. You can find me occasionally on In Touch with iOS. You can sometimes find me giving Andrew grief on Twitter from afar. And the rest of the time, you can find me on Twitter as Verso.
Kelly, when I click on that link you dropped in the chat, it goes to a page for the the tool you're using for cat.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't go to your thing.
I'm not sure why it's not working. Okay.
And you went to, it says this is cast, record, edit, publisher, and host your podcast.
Okay. If you go to aftershowpodcast.com, I know it shows up in that feed as well, so you can find it there.
I just thought I'd let you know so you're not handing that out to people.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure why that doesn't work. So that one is actually not one I'm responsible for. So all I have to do is just go pester Mike and go, hey, the link is broken, and then it's not my problem anymore. So yay.
Jim Ray, thank you for being here. Where can folks find you? You're somewhere there.
You're definitely somewhere.
Definitely somewhere. And I guess if you want to know more about where I am, you can go to provue.com, PROVUE, or on the Not Yet Elon machine, you can find me at Provue Jim on Twitter.
I like that. The Not Yet Elon machine. Nicely done, Jim. Nicely done.
Well, let's hope I can keep saying that for.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can keep saying that for a long time, indefinitely.
Jeff Gamet, thank you for being here. What's the best place for people to catch up with you?
Well, what did you call it, Jim? The Not Yet
Elon machine.
Okay, I'm going to shorten that to the pre-lawn machine. So you can find me on the pre-lawn machine and Instagram. I'm Jay Gamet on both, and youtube.com/Jay Gamet for my occasional videos. Here with you on Tuesdays, Thursdays on In Touch with iOS with Dave, because he's gracious enough to let me come back again and again. And let's see, the big show on Thursdays, the Mac show on Fridays, and the big cuddly guy, Brian Chaffin, and I have teamed up for the Context Machine. So we have cool stuff we talk about every week. Also, as we record, today I recorded an episode of The Edition with Charlotte Henry about WWDC predictions. So that will be available, I believe, on Tuesday the 1st, Wednesday the 1st. Math and time are hard to mix together. Wednesday the 1st. Okay, that's enough stuff about where to find me for now.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Frank Petrie, thank you for being here. What's the best place for folks to catch up with you?
Well, for having me. I'm here, first of all, every Monday night at 8 o'clock. And let's see, I've online. I have a monthly review. I have a website, ympnow.com. You can find me on Musk Network at Petrie, and I'm on Instagram when I feel up to it at PHRANKY. And I'm also on the corner here with a cup, just looking for quarters.
Thank you, Frank. Good to have you as always. David Ginsburg, where can folks find you? Thank you for being here.
Thank you, as always, for having me. You can find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. You also can find me on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/DaveG65. I'm on the Mac Show on Fridays in the British Tech Network, as well as I am on Twitter at DaveG65. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And Brittany Smith had to step away, but I know you can find Brittany on, what was it, the Prelon Machine, Jeff? Did I get that right?
The Prelon Machine.
The Prelon
Machine.
Yeah, she is ADD Liberator on Twitter, and you can find her also on her YouTube channel. Oh, there she is. I'm doing her bit for her.
You're doing a great job, Chuck.
So straight. I got the Twitter handle, but I don't know the YouTube. So I'll let you do it.
It's also ADG Liberator, and I've been experimenting with posting videos regularly. I have another Shortcuts one coming out on Sunday.
Excellent. Thanks so much for being here. I'm glad you made it back. Folks, a couple things here I want to make sure you know. First of all, to make sure that this gets out pre-WWDC, this will probably publish Friday. And instead of cutting it up into pieces, I'm going to publish it as one big show so that you can listen to it over the weekend and get ready for the big event on Monday. So just so you know. Also, as we talked about pre-show, I want to make sure you know about this now. Next week, I'm traveling. It's an unfortunate conflict with WWDC. So we are going to try to do Mac Voices Live Monday night at the usual time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. If you're not sure or you need any updates on that, check the Mac Voices presence on Twitter and also the Mac Voices group on Facebook. I'll post any updates there to time and or date and whether it's on or not. So with that, I want to thank the panel. I'm looking forward to DubDub next week, even if I won't be sitting through it quite exactly at the time it's happening. And we will see you back here again the following week, definitely at the regular time. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.